Now, you're very welcome back. So we are reviewing the Sunday sports pages. We have in studio Ciaran Raghallaigh and Johnny Ward. I'll run you through the front pages first of all. Sunday Times, they have, the scene from Vicarage Road last night. After 422 days and 44 matches, Liverpool suffer league defeat to struggling Watford. They have Rory Best, Plastic Paddy Jibes Hurt. Excerpts from his new book Inside. We'll touch on them. Interesting story here, which we'll also probably start with. Kenny comments annoyed Mick McCarthy. Another leak from the FAI minutes, the basis of this story. We'll come to that in a second. And Six Nations doubts grow over Ireland's game in Paris. So Ireland Six Nations match, writes Peter O'Reilly, in Paris on the 14th of March looks certain to be postponed. You may have seen the French government yesterday banned gatherings of more than 5,000 people in confined spaces. Now, they haven't exactly said if a confined space is a stadium just yet. I know Ligue 1 and Top 14 matches went ahead this weekend, but the feeling is that looks a bit ominous for Ireland's game in Paris. World Rugby meets tomorrow to discuss the situation at large. Sunday Independent then. This is a fantastic picture, which you may or may not have seen on social media over the last while. So if you haven't seen it, it's a picture from the mid-1980s. We have a British Army soldier with a gun on the streets of West Belfast, and in front of him, pretty much completely oblivious and going about their own business, two young lads with hurls. And so the reason they have printed this on the front page is that inside Dermot Crowe has managed to track down the two young lads, now youngish men, and to have a chat about things. So we'll come to that in a second. But it's a really different front page on the Sunday Independent. Beneath that picture, though, champions-elect brought down to earth again. That's Liverpool at Vicarage Road. Sunday Mirror then, again, Vicarage Road. It's so near yet so Czar. He was brilliant last night, scored goals. Liverpool's hopes of completing the perfect season left in tatters at Watford. Above that, tunnel trouble as Dubs losing Tyrone. I'm sure you saw some of the scenes in the tunnel. Tyrone 110, Dublin 1-7. We have the Sun then. Invincibles, but Klopp says we shouldn't be greedy, and then brawl in the squall. Brennan KO's Dublin. That's Rory Brennan who scored the late goal. Tyrone's 110 to Dublin's 1-7. And pictures from overhead. There's a phone video doing the rounds where you really kind of appreciate this was more than just pushing. Digs being thrown at pace in the tunnel. Players absolutely throwing punches. I don't know if there's any more conclusive footage than this phone footage or the TV camera from across the pitch, but it was definitely nasty. There was definitely an edge in that tunnel. Sunday Mirror Sport. Sorry, I've done that already. Excuse me. Sunday World. What the hell? Watford 3, Liverpool 0. Liverpool's invincible dream dies as Klopp's champions-elect are thrashed at Vicarage Road. And then stormy fight. Tyrone 110, Dublin 1-7. Familiar theme across the back pages. Mail on Sunday, no different. Klopp shock. Watford end Liverpool's invincible run. Watford 3, Liverpool 0. And then Rory Keane here. Major doubts over France tie. And Cheltenham. Nothing is safe at the moment, really. They say, I won't be able to find the piece, and if not one we're planning to discuss, but they say that the Olympics, the feeling is because of the logistics involved, because of the scale of the event, they'll pretty much, the IOC, have to make a call by May. It's not really something they can leave until a week or two before. So come May, decision will have to be made to pull this thing. There's so many stakeholders, so much money involved, as you can imagine. So the world at large, not just sport, holding its breath a little bit just now and seeing where all this goes. Lads, let's start with the Mick McCarthy, Stephen Kenny story. As I said, in the FAI, they must be looking around at each other now going, did you leak this? Who leaked this? Because the leaks have been going on for over a year now, and this is the latest one. This is the basis of this is a board meeting which John Delaney was very much involved in. So FAI documents, Paul Rowan here, seen by the Sunday Times, claimed that senior personnel were told to rein in Stephen Kenny after he made a speech which supposedly annoyed the senior manager, Mick McCarthy. Just what Mick McCarthy's going to want to be talking about ahead of the Slovakia match, by the way. So the speech was made at the Soccer Writers' Awards last January, the documents claim. The then Chief Executive, John Delaney, told the board last February that Kenny, quote, had gotten quite emotional and spoke pretty much to the League of Ireland constituency. Mick McCarthy was put out by it, he said. Stephen appeared to be appealing to the League of Ireland, saying, I'm one of ye. And Mick McCarthy said Stephen should recognise he's now one of us. I mean, what a sad state of affairs that the League of Ireland and the FAI are us and them, but that was the prevailing attitude. So they said that Rude Doctor would be telling Kenny that he is in an organisation now, that Cathal Dervin, the Director of Communications in the FAI, would need to speak to Stephen about discussing things publicly. And also in that board meeting, they were unhappy that Kenny had done 2 interviews ahead of becoming Ireland manager, one with Marion Finucane and the other with Paul Kimmage. According to the documents, Delaney said Stephen has been told by Gareth Maher, he's the FAI press officer, not to do that interview, but he did it anyway, which was disappointing. The documents also show, by the way, that even in, this is not a surprise to anyone, but even in late 2018, ahead of appointing Kenny to succeed McCarthy, the FAI very negative about the idea of Kenny taking over the top job. So they say here that it had been made clear to him, Kenny, that even if we do badly in November, he will not be made manager. Rude is to reiterate it to him again. Things obviously changed when pressure came on John Delaney post the Martin O'Neill, Roy Keane failure in November, and ultimately Kenny seemed to play his hand quite well and held out for the job he wanted and certainly got it. So that's a brief summation of what's in these documents. Just if you're Mick McCarthy, if you're the FAI, and indeed if you're Stephen Kenny, you're thinking, oh, how is this stuff getting out?
I can't but laud the Sunday Times for the role it played in last year's demise of the old FAI regime and the stuff it brought out. But being honest, I don't really see this as being particularly beneficial to Irish football, that this stuff is out there. It's going to undermine Stephen Kenny, it's going to undermine Mick McCarthy to a degree, and just what you referenced there, it's going to kind of copper fasten this kind of culture of paranoia now, because who's leaking this stuff, and is this stuff really important enough to be leaked? Like, not only that, but there's reference to the kind of, there's reference to individuals within the organisation that I don't think really need to be mentioned here. I don't think it's particularly fair on them. He listened to him more than he listened to the other guy, this sort of stuff. I actually know one of the people involved. I wouldn't like that to be me in the paper today.
Sunday Times will argue it is in the public interest. It is newsworthy.
Feels a bit gossipy.
It's gossipy. Like, maybe it is in the public interest. I'm not all that sure that it is, and I think Stephen Kenny would be smarting from this, because it implies that he basically ignored the advice of someone within the FAI with regard to doing the interview. And knowing him as I know him, which isn't all that well, but I know him reasonably well, I think this would hurt him. And I just don't really see. I'd be worried in the FAI that this stuff is getting leaked, because I don't think this is for the betterment of Irish football.
The issue there, I would say, is with the leaker and not with the Sunday Times and Paul Rowan. If stuff like that is leaked, it's front page news, it's interesting. Of course we're interested in the relationship between Kenny and his employers, and even between Kenny and Mick. It's no journalist, ourselves included, would refuse that story.
Yeah, this is about the conflict between those two things, isn't it? Like, football clubs and teams always want their own interests put first and would argue against this coming out. If this is the same person that's leaking it, that leaked the stuff last time, it seems a bit unusual, because it is very gossipy. I mean, stuff like, Cathal, I know Cathal and Gareth, to be honest, so it's a bit awkward.
Cathal Dervin being
the Director of Communications, and then Gareth Maher, the press officer who's been there longer than Cathal was, just to say, like, he'd tell him more strongly, because he's an older guy, he's more experienced. And Cathal knows Mick personally for decades, so there would be an interesting dynamic there. But, it's interesting that Stephen Kenny did those interviews while having been told not to.
He hasn't done many. He hasn't done a lot,
actually.
So it suggests that maybe a word was had.
Reiterated it. But just that little thing there, like the board member complaining that Kenny had shown hesitancy at times, a little vulnerability, and the media spotted this and would target it. Now, you've probably spoken to Stephen Kenny. I've spoken to him on the phone many times over the last 15 years, and he's a very peculiar speaker in the sense that he'll take a break, think about what you've asked him, and the phone will go dead for like 10 seconds, and it'll feel really uncomfortable for both of us. If not more. But you know that he's thinking about what he's going to tell you, and he's not giving you the bullshit that a lot of other people do. Yeah. So this board member doesn't seem to know who Stephen Kenny is, really, if they're picking that up and thinking that he's vulnerable. From what I get from this is that Stephen Kenny's very self-assured. He's very strong. He's willing to stand up. He turned down a 4-year deal to be the under-21 manager, which is, that's a big deal. Yeah. I happened to bump into him and park in John Delaney's spot the week of the All-Ireland versus New Zealand game a couple of years ago. So that was November internationals, and I think that must have been when he was pushing to get this deal across the board. He wanted and backs himself for the senior role. I think he backs himself more than some people within there might feel.
Yeah. Mick doesn't come across terribly well because he comes across as an FAI guy. Like Mick Delaney added, Mick McCarthy is very good at conveying our message. We met with the EA Sports with the CEO and charmed them. He met with the EA Sports CEO and charmed him. And then it goes on to say that, you know, not many managers are willing to kind of do that sort of, I suppose, part of the job. And we all know now that at this stage the FAI was in financial in a bad way. But whether Mick would like to, I don't think Mick will be reading this and absolutely delighted that he was very good at conveying our message being the message of JD, obviously, and the guys at that time.
Yeah, no, I think if you're hired as a manager, you want to be hired purely on your footballing abilities.
Yeah, I don't think that's so bad. I mean, Trapattoni was good at this stuff as well.
Maybe it's a reality. Maybe it's just a reality, especially in international management where there aren't games coming thick and fast.
Else. Yeah, like it's something that must be on contracts. I've never seen one, but there must be a lot of days allocated to coming over and, you know, sell our summer classes and all the rest. But like Mick McCarthy, I'm surprised that he'd be feeling this way, if this is accurate, about Stephen Kenny, because Mick's one of the no bullshit managers out there.
Yeah,
like it's almost like they broke the mould with him, but Stephen's willing to speak out and do things his own way. I just thought Mick might shrug this off a bit.
I know Stephen is very conscious of not. If I've done any interviews with him the last while, I don't ask about the senior team. It's not my remit, and he doesn't want to be standing. He doesn't want to be stepping on Mick McCarthy's toes, and he is very conscious of that. But ultimately now, Niall Quinn and the guys in the FAI, there should be a serious meeting tomorrow to stamp this out, because this is not good for the organisation. No. It's not good for the atmosphere they're in either.
No, Paul Rowan does add, by the way, anything which John Delaney said to the board automatically carries a health warning, as he frequently misled its members, says Rowan, although John Delaney will, I'm sure, strenuously deny that if he was here. As the events of last year have told us, adds Rowan. However, what the documents clearly show is the level of unease amongst the then board members, not just Delaney, about the man they appointed to succeed McCarthy, which only adds to the bizarre nature of the succession. And that does add to the sense that the succession plan really was to stave off a pressure that was coming on John Delaney at the time. The point to make, I suppose, as well, whether that board were hesitant or not about Stephen Kenny, that board are largely gone.
Yeah. Do we have a date for these meetings, or the minutes where they've come from?
No reference to 2018, and when Stephen Kenny made the acceptance speech, that goes back to 2018.
January 2019 was this banquet, the Football Writers' Banquet. I would presume in the month or two.
Oh, sorry, it says there last February.
February 2019, yeah.
So, I mean, it's a peculiar one to be releasing now.
Were you at the banquet in question, the Soccer Writers Awards? Like, do you remember Stephen Kenny's speech as being provocative in some way?
I actually can't remember. I probably was.
You had a bit of wine by then, Johnny.
No, it was like, because I was at it this year.
Was it after 8 at that stage?
There might have been one I missed. Stephen's speeches, you know,
they're frequently like that.
You know, yeah, I'm kind of so used to it at this stage. It might have gone slightly over my head, but
sure.
I actually was trying to think today. Was I at that? There's the Soccer Writers Awards, there's the PFAI Awards, but
Mick McCarthy mightn't have been in the habit of hearing those speeches, and you know, I'm sure Stephen Kenny did appeal to a League of Ireland element in the room.
Definitely, but I mean, what was his people or whatever? I mean, that obviously he's been coaching in the League of Ireland almost uninterrupted since he was in his mid to late 20s, so he's very commonly associated with the League of Ireland. But he's the references to his passionate speeches, like Stephen comes across at times as though I know he's actually had this issue before. He's been described as crying in the middle of an interview, and he would say to me afterwards, "Where did you get that? I wasn't crying."
Yeah,
you know. And but sometimes, I mean, I remember he gave forms, I think, on the after Dundalk had done something great on the TV before on Soccer Republic, and I actually thought he was crying as well, but he wasn't. He just has that kind of very emotional manner about him.
Yeah,
but
okay.
I don't know. I think this won't. I think this will upset him a little bit, definitely.
I think it'll also go away quite quickly.
Yes,
you know,
it'll have to.
Well, a lot of the people involved just are, you know, mix into his end of days one way or another. The board are largely gone. John Delaney is gone, so it feels like less of an issue. But it's interesting nonetheless. By the way, on Mick McCarthy, and I'm turning here to Philip Quinn on page 82 of the Mail on Sunday, he was at the Shamrock Rovers Dundalk game on Friday night, live on TV. Philip Quinn here just making the point that Rovers, they managed just 9 points out of a possible 36 last season against Dundalk and Bows and Sligo, the bogey sides. and he says they're firmly 4 games in on the hit list, next up being Sligo. But that game, he calls it a throbbing Tallaght Stadium. And as an advertisement for the league, you know, Jack Byrne's spin and turn to evade Chris Shields before curling a left footer. Mick McCarthy missed that. He had just left. Yeah. But obviously the goal of Jordan Flores, well over 1 million views now.
Or 5 million.
Is it 5? Yeah, so this was a cracking game. I remember like 25 minutes in, I was just thinking, this is great stuff. And then the Flores goal happened.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, geez, you're throwing goals of that quality in.
Yeah.
As opposed to the opening weekend of the league, which would make you think, oh, this thing is mired. This is a long way from getting up to scratch. Here in a modern stadium, loads of kids, brilliant football, high-tempo football, actually. Good quality technical stuff and a great game, goals. I mean, I remember sitting there going, this is better fare than what's on Leinster-Glasgow on the other channel.
Yeah, like
it was a glimpse of the future.
I'd hope that I hope it got a good viewing figures on RT, but certainly, I mean, over 5 million hits for that goal, and
the one that has the skip in it.
Yeah, which is very unfortunate because I kept thinking it was my computer, and so the technique of the Flores goal is just so ridiculous. Like, it's not. I don't think words can do it any sort of justice. Not only his standing leg, but what he does with his left leg and his ability to kind of use the gravity to go against the ball coming against him and so on and so forth. But it is disappointing. You look at all these papers today and there's really... Sunday Times is very, very poor in League of Ireland coverage, has been for a long, long time.
I haven't seen any mention of it in
Nothing.
Any papers.
And Sunday Independent, if I may be wrong, I don't see it referenced in the Sunday Independent. I know that the Sunday papers have... their deadlines are quite early in the week, so Friday night is quite late for them. But I think that was pretty seismic, what happened on Friday night. When you see the reaction all over Europe, FIFA tweeting it,
sports centre like ESPN and all,
and it was just like I believe in the standard of the League of Ireland in terms of these two teams and the quality they play, and it's no surprise to me really to see a game like that. Now obviously it was out of the ordinary, but we need more of it, Joe.
How does that game compare to 7th against 8th?
You get good games, but I mean they are so far ahead, Dundalk and Shamrock Rovers. They really are. I know Stephen Bradley spoke about Sligo Roars, but essentially last season they didn't win the league because they blew it against Bohemians and Dundalk. But
Johnny Ward curse also.
The Johnny Ward curse. But I actually, right now, I think, I mean, at worst it looks 50-50 for Shamrock Rovers. They've gone 3 points ahead. But the thing will be Jack Byrne. I mean, I've been imploring people for years. I met a couple of young lads from Galway last night, and they were asking me about the League of Ireland, and I was just like, well, watch that game last night. My brother was talking about the goals. He wouldn't be a big League of Ireland fan, but from the recent years with summer football and the Dundalk way of playing, well, a lot of it which is to do with Stephen Kenny. To me, I enjoy going to League of Ireland games. I don't want to pontificate to people that they should go. I think they should go because they'll enjoy watching football. And I know Emma Malone did the study of Irish people's affiliations on Saturday. I would just implore people to go along to watch Dundalk Shamrock Rovers games because I think they'll enjoy it, and there's a good commitment. And the underage players in Ireland now, they're all just, it's getting better and better, and I think I thought it was the best advertisement I've ever seen for the League of Ireland.
I'd agree. Even the physical conditioning of the players now is on a par with what we're routinely seeing. They're lean, they're fit, they're agile. The
skin-tight kits and all that fans don't want to wear,
Mick being at the game as well, and I know he missed the goal, but Jack is still somewhat relevant in the overall picture, and I think that's important.
I think though, comparing it to the first weekend, I mean, you had the big match-up that day, but it's kind of fortunate that this is now... I'd like to think this is something Niall Quinn and the guys in the FAI would be packaging together for media companies. I mean, I saw yesterday morning, I was up early, I was watching some TV waiting for something else to come on. Actually, I think I was looking at this morning's listing, and you had Melbourne versus Brisbane or something. And it's mostly awful crap. Like, you've got some ex-championship guys in there, a couple of big names as managers, but they package it nicely. And the League of Ireland has always had problems with that, with the image.
Yeah.
And it does make a difference, whether you care to believe that or not. But to have that goal happen in somewhere like Tallaght Stadium with 7,500 people, instead of with a background of an empty stand in Dalymount that's dilapidated, would make a big difference. So if they could package that and promote that out there, and again, show that kind of reach that they can get. And like we've seen tons of great goals in this league over the years. I don't know if it's more than others. Sometimes it feels like they stand out, like Keith Fahey. Bowes Rovers games have had a couple of cracking goals. Paddy McCourt over the years. Like, to package them up and sell them as a nice... But again, we were lucky. That was a perfect storm. You had Tallaght, You had the two teams.
Television.
It's the best
Goals.
stadium by a distance.
It's also the fact that
I think the stadium is huge.
massive.
But I think Niall Quinn could be a force for great change, positive change, in that he can now, if somebody is backing the league, and the league needs more TV rights money because it's derisory, it's very, very little. The prize money is atrocious. So the clubs have had to basically do this among themselves. It's like self-sufficiency almost, because they're not really getting any money apart from UEFA money in Europe. So I would like to see Sky, or like to see other TV stations look at the League of Ireland, because Sky could look at it and say, this could form part of our summer football package, because we don't have much summer football.
Absolutely.
Because I think it's not like RT. I must give RT some credit, as much as Soccer Republic has kind of it's lost its way a bit. They've now have like extended coverage of the live games, and they've highlights from the other games afterwards, which is great. And the coverage on Friday night was very good. But I think anyone watching that game would say, I want to watch the League of Ireland more, and maybe just start to think about when they see what's going on in modern football and the money involved. Maybe there's something about the League of Ireland that I can relate to.
Sure.
Yeah.
Page 4 of the Sunday Times. So, Nuno Espirito Santo, manager of Wolves, always, I think, comes across incredibly well in his post-match interviews. This is my guy of the weekend, yeah, for sure. And they've won today away to Spurs, by the way.
It's funny giving out about the Premier League, whatever. This is the exact antithesis to what you might say. This is just great.
So the byline is Nuno Espirito. Usually, by the way, the Sunday Times often have a Premier League superstar, well-known face.
Yeah.
And I would say 8 times out of 10, it underwhelms for various reasons. So the byline here, Nuno Espirito Santo says that the game will go back to the tactics of the 1920s, and he wants to be the first man to adopt them. So right away I'm saying, okay,
Quirky.
I'm listening, I'm into this.
Yeah.
Starts off, so there's a lot I didn't know about Nuno, I must say. Talks about growing up on a very small island off the west coast of Africa, lived there till he was 7, idyllic, his grandmother a few houses down, you play football with all your friends and family. I'm looking forward to living like that again. When I stop working, I want to live under the same patterns, with freedom, with simple things. One switch turns one light off, and that's it. It's my origins. I like to live with no shoes. So that's a hell of a start. Last 16 of the Europa League, won today, contending for top 4. Last season 7th, FA Cup finalists as well, semi-finalists as well. So what they do here, which is really great, is they dig into his beliefs. Small squads, player relationships, fining, not fining. I didn't realise, I have to say, Nuno was the sub-goalkeeper for the Porto team under Mourinho that won the Champions League. That was the big,
He was on the bench in the UEFA Cup final in 2003, because I remember being in Seville and hoping he was playing, because Vitor Baia was the goalkeeper.
Okay.
He wasted like hours of time. Horrible player.
Yes, that game, that was particularly dark arts kind of a final, but I want to drag it up for you.
There's a few of them.
Talks about that team and like Mourinho's brilliance. That Porto squad the day before, they always had lunch before a game. The players by ourselves, we train. Everybody was allowed to leave and come back again to the hotel later, but we always stayed together. Mourinho knew about it. He allowed it. He never messed with it. And his line, which he uses at several points in the piece, is, when special people gel, you have something special. A great point he makes here. Goalkeeping is great preparation for coaching. You get used to reading games from the edges. And as a backup keeper, he realised he could, garner so much from a game. And I was thinking, that makes such sense. You're involved in the tactical meetings.
Yeah.
You're around the game the whole time, and you're watching games in the same way a manager watches the games. And then I thought, how many goalkeepers have made great coaches? Dino Zoff was the one that jumped to mind.
Yeah.
Walter
But
Zenga.
beyond that, who?
Walter Zenga.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bruce Arena.
Okay. Because I asked Lawrence and Mark Lawrence, and I was like, for instance, would Bruce Grobler have known the game? He was like, not a chance. Didn't have a clue.
Bruce is a bit of a
You
character.
have to be a thinker, don't you? To go with it.
But I must say, when I watch, sorry to interrupt, when I watch Peter Schmeichel doing punditry, a part of me thinks, goalkeeper, what does he know? And when you think about it in the other terms.
Yeah.
Jose Mourinho's dad was a goalkeeper who was a coach.
Okay.
Interesting enough. I think he played once for Portugal, but he had loads of league games. And he was a coach then all over Portugal, and he brought Jose in as well. I wonder how much of that passed on through, because you don't see a lot of them. I mean,
but it makes sense.
Nigel Adkins and Harry Gregg, those kind of guys but there's not a lot. There really isn't. No, well, does it make sense though? It's confirmation bias when you hear it from the guy who's successful, but there's probably 100 goalkeepers out there who haven't been given that chance.
Yeah.
He speaks about the their kind of counter-attacking system as well.
That was very technical, isn't it?
You say Wolves is a team of counter-attack, okay, no problem, but how do we counter-attack? Traditionally, you are defending, you recover the ball, you counter-attack, but you can prepare where you recover the ball, who is going to recover the ball. You are determining the moment of your counter-attack. You can unbalance a team without the ball. I work a lot in that process.
That sounds like Pep almost, doesn't it?
It's hard to know exactly what he's getting at there, but he draws a massive distinction between the way Wolves work, and I think that cutting-edge coaching is fascinating because the game is always evolving.
Well, what he's saying there effectively is we choose the moment. So, because
it's like a delayed counter.
Yeah, and Northcroft, I think, asks the right question. He says, "Is Klopp similar?" He says, "No, Klopp's amazing. Klopp is different. He's counter pressure. You recover, you lose it, then you go. He works for the moment he loses the ball."
It's like he wants to get the ball back, but Wolves want to force the others to lose the ball and then be in position to do it. And I think that
is incredible if that's where the game is at. I would have thought you're not really. Anytime you can win the ball back, you're winning the ball back. Whereas he seems to be saying, well, we might direct it to a position, we might manipulate things, so that when we win the ball back, Matt Doherty can break and someone else is ready to go.
Side that forces them over to
Doherty obviously scored today. They got an amazing result, and he's making the point here, John Northcroft, where they've come from under him. In that they're now very much in contention to finish in the top four. They'd finished 15th in the championship before he arrived in 2017. Now he's had the resources and all that, but they're just an incredibly likeable team. Wolves,
yeah, they're a great team.
And I think Doherty's really blossomed as a player there. In that
you can understand now his interview when Martin O'Neill was leaving, when you compare Nuno and the lads picking the exact moment to win the ball to counter-attack versus five-a-side match go in the team.
It's a good point though, Joe. I mean, can you imagine like how demoralizing or frustrating it must be for these are professional footballers, and in any event Doherty has thrived, and we see today Seamus Coleman picked up an injury. I don't know how serious it was, but we've Doherty gone into great form into the Slovakia game, but I think you can see how much freedom he has under that coach.
Yeah, but you have to throw in. I mean, I love getting caught up in the little Disney story that is Wolves, and I think they've become a great team to watch. They're playing great stuff, but they have George Mendes there, who's pretty much putting together a whole squad. Again, there's a lot to get right, but he's been able to bring in somebody like Traore, Jota, Neves, Moutinho. Yeah. I think they spent about net 80 million last year.
The Mendes connection is...
Mendes is huge. And I mean, they were able to do that in the Championship, so he had that preparation. But again, you look at some other clubs that have had the money and they haven't done it. Sure. So if we step away from the moralising, there is a job to be done. He's probably gotten recruitment incredibly well. Some of those guys, they come in and they fit.
I thought was interesting as well. This is something I firmly believe in, restricting the numbers in your squad, because I don't think it.
I've never heard anybody say that in the last 2 decades for me.
Yeah, it's just obviously you have to manage your injuries, but I don't see the point in having like a third of your squad who think they've literally no chance of playing. I don't think that does much. And he says he limits his squads to 18, and essentially there's no kind of clique in terms of the training, that every player thinks he's a chance. And I think you need to be doing that so that players have a chance, and then maybe rely on younger players coming through because I honestly don't see the point in paying wages to players who are not going to be playing.
It makes sense. He said if you leave 3 or 4 players behind, these 3 or 4 are not in the same dynamic as the others, so there's a clash even between best friends. All these things happened all in my career. The training sessions, the worst ones are when there's players who are not involved, and it's dangerous as well.
Exactly.
I loved. I mean, the thing about the fines is fantastic. So
that's a great psychology,
isn't it? Yeah. Like, so basically, I mentioned this earlier in the show. So apologies if you were listening at 1:30. You have a big star. He comes 5 minutes late, and I say, okay, £5,000 fine. He says, whatever. Tomorrow I'll come 10 minutes late. The day after 15, are you going to fine me? What works? So now, what happens at the Wolves training session is, if you are running 10 minutes late, 15 minutes late, or 20 minutes late, the other 17 players will be standing on the pitch freezing, and training will not start until you arrive. So you can imagine the welcome you get. Can you imagine the anxiety in the car as you realise, oh no.
Well, imagine it was United and you had Roy Keane waiting there freezing 15 minutes. It's interesting that we're in an age where a lot of great things we think are brand new, even though they're not, because we've lost a lot of track of history. But in the 60s, Jock Stein said the trick to management is keeping the 6 players who love me away from the 5 who hate me. So it has always been a little bit of psychology in the great man managers. So this guy obviously has a nice mix of technical, deep thinking on the game and the psychology.
He believes discipline is best enforced through psychology, and there's also that reference to the young player who, I have to remember his name, Quaresma, and he was talking about how...
what a genius he was.
And he was like a kind of a precocious player. This developed. Remember Quaresma, amazing player, but as a boy he was living in conflict. He was suspecting this, and this doesn't he was suspecting this doesn't pass me the ball. I suspect he was saying, like, my teammates don't pass me the ball. To unbreak this psychology was tough, but through talking we did it. And he's fluent in 5 languages.
Just the 5 languages.
Yeah, his son is studying theoretical physics in Manchester.
Funny, he'll end up being a scout for Wolves.
Actually, I love that.
Liverpool
I love the bit
like
at the end, actually, where he's just saying, this takes us back to Principe and a life with no shoes. He's only 46. His management career could reach the top, but his drivers are not status and fame. He lives in a flat near Wolves' training ground, and he chuckles. Fame, I don't have that problem in Wolverhampton. You go to the supermarket, there are 3 people there, you sign a photo, they say, OK, the checkout guy is always the same, bye, see you tomorrow. I just think that's great.
It is, yeah.
I think a flat might be a little bit different to what we think a flat is.
Yeah, it's probably not a studio. No. On the 1920s, by the way, this is when he's talking about where he picks out where to start a counter-attack. He says, you remember the tactics of
is that Herbert Chapman
the
and
20s?
Those kind of
the VWM.
WM.
2-3-3-2. And I mean, as soon as he said that, I suddenly thought, God, that is the way the game's going. Like, the fullbacks are pushed on now, split centre-halves. Yeah. That's the way the game is going. He said, nobody is doing a 2-3-3-2 yet. I hope I get there first.
Pretty sure Trapattoni did that during the Euros.
Yeah. To finish with, Johnny, I thought of you in this, actually. He gets a bit philosophical here, where he talks about, the key to happiness. And one of the things he says is, don't have a plan. It never goes wrong then. Just live. Just live.
Is that a reflection on you?
What you're talking about there, Joe?
I was like, that's Johnny Ward. That's
Bohemian.
it. Just live.
I have a plan, I just don't know what it is. But, I don't really feel happy. I feel always busy. So what is being happy? Doing nothing in the sunshine? No. So I guess
he's right in that.
Life is what happens when you're doing stuff.
Making plans.
So that is good. As a Premier League manager, that's good stuff.
Yeah.
Thumbs up.
Is Kipling British or Indian, by the way? I thought just the last, very, very last line. Anyhow, just because we jumped past it earlier on, we were talking about getting money in for the League of Ireland.
Sorry,
Quinn's plans and stuff. No, this is just very quickly. Yeah, this is just it's in the news, the news section of the Indo.
Yeah.
And Quinn, who has mentioned this before about gambling, getting funding from gambling the way Greyhound horse racing has, but also this is an interesting one. That CAB, which is the Criminal Assets Bureau, they seize cars and cash from drug dealers, and he says, why don't we get that rather than get it back into the tax pile? Wouldn't it be better if it went back into the areas through sport, not just football, but the GA as well? It would be like a gesture to make us all feel like the community is getting something back from crime, which is an unfortunate sentence, but it's an interesting one. Redistribution.
Where does it currently go, the stuff from camp?
Tax goes back to the revenue. Basically.
Yeah, no, I'd sooner give it back to revenue.
His thing is,
I don't really want you to. I don't really like a scenario where, like,
you're kind of lauding crime because
brilliant, we got all that money.
We got a new dressing room there.
Yeah.
But his point about the funding from gambling, I mean, that is going to become an issue because essentially it's anachronistic that racing should.
The levies on horse racing, isn't it?
Yeah, because it's not. This is based on an old system that isn't.
He seems to suggest that the online gambling and betting companies have already approached them for shirt sponsorship because 3 year going. SSE, he says, up to now, he said, I could have had the Women's National League sponsored, the Men's League for both divisions, and the Men's National Team sponsored, which is quite a claim. He doesn't say who, but he's saying that, he's saying that as in we're in good shape, that people want to come to us. But I think it sounds like implicitly it's betting companies, and there's a moral conflict going on at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's a situation right across sport, isn't it? 28 minutes on the clock in the Carabao Cup. Aston Villa 0, Manchester City 1. Sergio Aguero with the goal for Manchester City. Short ad break, and then we're back with part 2 of the papers with Johnny and Ciaran. Now then, you're very welcome back. We're reviewing the Sunday papers. We have Ciaran Raghallaigh and Johnny Ward here in the studio. We've already gone through a couple of stories. We're moving on to page 6 and 7 of the Sunday Times. Rory Best's new book is incoming. Extracts in the Sunday Times today. 2 themes broadly dealt with. One, his identity and being an Irish captain from up north. And then secondly, beneath that, he reveals he was almost and very of a mind to quit just before the World Cup because his performances against England at Twickenham in particular were causing him worry. And he suddenly says, I had turned 37 years old 9 days before Twickenham and the loss there, and suddenly I felt old. And he reveals a conversation with Joe Schmidt, talking him around, telling him he's more than good enough to play. I'd be the first to tell you if you weren't. But coming to the main excerpt, there's a picture of Rory Best with his eyes closed during Aaron Levine. And the quote is, I'm British, but I'm proud to play for Ireland. Not singing the anthem doesn't make me a plastic paddy. So it's about his identity, this whole excerpt, really. First of all, I have to say in the main, it's punchy enough. He's not saying nothing across these excerpts. Like these bode well. Sometimes these books don't give away much. I think we're getting a decent sense of his thoughts on things.
Yeah, I'd given up on a lot of these books, to be honest. When he did speak out before Christmas, and some of it is down in the bottom section there.
What went wrong in 2019 stuff. Yeah.
He apparently kind of cut back on what he said to us. But now he's just reiterating it and even stronger.
Yeah.
I mean, that you're micromanaging the captain's run. You are micromanaging the message, the mess around before the pre-match meal.
Okay, well, seeing as you've gone there, let's go there. So,
just because this just stands out as being a lot more relevant to the topic and the time where we are now.
Yeah.
And the fact that he felt he had to come out and apologise almost to Joe before Christmas, and we were like, we thought he should have owned what he said. But he says, you're the best coach in the world, but it is constant.
This is after the loss at Twickenham.
This is after the 57-15.
He goes to meet Schmidt.
He said, we as a leadership group and me as captain need to take more responsibility for what we are doing. I need to be better organised to know on a captain's run what we are doing. If you say the captain's run is ours, then you will get the details. I will tell you exactly which coaches I need and what equipment I need. You talk about us leading, you have to give us the room to lead. So he did say some of this in November or December, I can't remember exactly when it was. It seemed to be then afterwards Joe got a bit ticked off with it. Rory went back in it, and now he's doubled down. It's really quite strong, you know, and he says he's had a couple of rows elsewhere. He says he had a row with him about John O'Gibbs and different things. So I don't know what that relationship really was like.
The only issue with this excerpt is it doesn't give us the full story, in that it was definitely on the record that after Twickenham he went and met with Joe, and the quotes are there: you're micromanaging, it's constant. You're micromanaging the message around the pre-match meal. By the time we get to the pre-match talk, the players have heard you so much, it's become too much. All of that.
Yeah.
And then he says, Schmidt responds to that meeting post-Twickenham and says, no problem, I'll give you that room. And he says, you know, that's what's brilliant about Joe, that if you say something, he will in the main listen. What we don't know is once they got to Japan, where we hear there was a retightening from certain
that's
quarters.
What Rory brought up as well. He said that
so
before.
I'm very curious to see in the book.
Well, he's done a good job. He's kept you
best
waiting.
account of the World Cup. You know,
yeah.
There was the talk of the coaches meeting
Zealand
with the
game.
players before the New Zealand game. That stuff. Yeah. So that's not actually, it's subtly done here.
There's only so much you can get into the space that's there, but as well, like him saying there, I was done, I was past it, I was too old and I had to go. They were playing Wales the next week. Joe, whoever asked me to play again on the bench against Wales in Cardiff the following Saturday, I thought, all right, I will play, but if it doesn't go well, I'm out.
Yeah.
By then I had convinced myself I'd played terribly against England, told my wife Jodie that if I did the same off the bench, I would take the decision out of Joe's hands. I was ready to go, which is quite something.
Do you know, it's an interesting one because...
A couple of weeks before a World Cup.
I do remember from the outside, a couple of weeks from the World Cup, as you say, 37 years old, and everybody here in this studio and elsewhere was saying Rory Best too old. And you could be forgiven for looking at Best and thinking, well, he's stubbornly ignoring all that. He's 37. This is my chance to go out in the World Cup. I'm taking it. And actually the reality is this guy is so unnerved himself. He's ready to quit. Schmidt has to talk him around to go into the World Cup.
Which is quite something, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, at that age where you know you're going to be completely finished, but at any age to think about throwing away a World Cup, that like he actually does a piece somewhere else. I think Darren Cave says that he was just racked with fear, you know, of failure or of not being good enough or whatever, and he's always driven himself forward. So yeah, it does look like a really interesting book. The way he delves into deeper questions that a lot of people won't touch.
On his identity, when he was named captain, he got 1,000 messages of support. Then he says, one guy wrote on social media, no offence, but how can a fat Protestant like you captain our country? You don't even sing the anthem.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, like, there's so many idiots on Twitter. I don't really know if you should even mention
I'm
something
getting
like
tired of the social media.
Social media is an absolute cesspit, right? So
is the world. You know?
If 1 in 1,000 is like that, I mean, the fact that he's a Protestant is completely irrelevant. And then he didn't even spell offence properly. He spelled it with an A. Yeah. So it's kind of like, you know, you need.
He says it's the one thing he can remember verbatim.
But that's not a surprise either, is it? You know, we'd always.
There are a lot of trolls.
A lot of people.
We all have a negative bias.
Pick up the negative. Yeah, but what's this thing he said? I'd seen Drico do this before. So, it was how he replied. Sorry, I
He retweeted that tweet.
Rico had said something.
No, right? Last time I checked, he wasn't a fat Protestant.
No, or a thin one. But this is probably the first time I've seen or read even Rory Best saying I'm British.
He doesn't actually say he's British though either. If you read the
just
piece,
in the headline there, is it?
says,
No, I think there's somewhere else.
He said when he has to sign
when he
documents,
signs a form, I put British because I live in Northern Ireland.
Yeah.
So that's slightly different. And then he says, of course, somebody.
There might be more
Cork,
in the book.
Yeah, it's technically. He says. The Orange Order was not for us as a family, and I didn't go to a July 12th celebration until my early 20s, but that was really an excuse to go drinking with my mates. A lot of the
It seems to be for a lot of people.
So the identity here, I think he kind of actually slightly skirts around it a bit, where he says he used to enjoy going to games when he was a kid, and he used to be inspired by. He says he's a real affinity with Aran Naveen.
Yeah, he seems to be one of the few, because I remember you guys in here a few weeks ago talking about it. And he says the crescendo.
If you're comparing it to La Marseillaise, then the crescendo ain't all that. Here's the key line, right? Here's the one that's going to get people, may have a bit of a fallout. Put in the WhatsApp group for the Irish team. Here's the line that's going to be a picture is going to be taken of. He says, the irony is that I have a real affinity. This is on Plastic Paddy. The irony is I have a real affinity with Aran Naveen. It brings back memories of when I travelled down to watch Ireland play at Lansdowne Road as a schoolboy. And I've always found the crescendo moving. It was always one of the bits I loved about playing for Ireland. Yeah. And then here we go. There were some South Africans I played with in the Ireland team who were in tears during the anthems. And I would think, do me a favour, this is just for show. But then people on social media said it looked as if playing for Ireland meant more to those players than me. Really? These lads would have been grown up hoping to play for South Africa until his mid-20s and then moved to Ireland. Now, boom.
Speculate away, yeah.
Well, I mean, he's saying that about teammates he played with. And
yeah, well, there's a few.
He was looking at them saying, do me a favour. So,
like, I would hope he considers himself.
Strong.
I would hope he considers himself Irish anyway. You know, if he's captain of Ireland, and he's but he slightly skirts around.
Is he allowed just consider himself Northern Irish, Protestant, captain of Ireland, British on forms? He mentions his son there with the English bed sheets.
That's the Spurs fan.
It's hilarious.
Is he not allowed to be all of those things?
Absolutely. I guess it's just as somebody who kind of I love the All Ireland teams, and like given how much it clearly meant to him to play for Ireland, I hope he at least considers himself a bit Irish. You know, because
I would say a bit Irish.
Yeah, but it's.
Well, we don't know, and I mean, he's entitled as well to not.
He is. That's
I mean,
he's an OBE,
is he OBE or CBE or MBE?
So he's one of them.
One of them,
I think. Yeah.
And I mean, to be honest, like I'd have a general kind of. That's I'm not a monarchist. I'd have an issue with those kind of things existing in any country, not just in Britain or whatever. You know, and a lot of British people wouldn't be for them as well. Taking that, I think a lot of people just want to just do the nice thing, take it, and not say anything else. That seems a little uncomfortable. And I had a friend who would be a GA man. Actually, I'm not into GA at all, but he was like, you know, why do we have an OBE as the captain? But outside of that, I've never heard anybody say Plastic Paddy. You?
No, I think I'm a bit.
No, listen,
I don't think. I think he's probably referencing people here that ultimately just don't matter. I mean, if you go to a rugby game, I don't think Rory Best's like commitment or nationality or whatever ever really is brought up. Do you know?
I've never.
Next year is the 100-year anniversary of the formation of Northern Ireland, and that is going to be very interesting in terms of identity and all that. Where does Northern Ireland stand? And but yeah.
No, the South African thing could open up.
Well, I would suspect South African members of the squad will be asked about that next day. You know,
they'll be delighted.
Well, it's good. The coronavirus doesn't give us much to talk about, so, you know.
Lessons to learn from Twickenham, just briefly on the other side. I suspect lots of you have had your fill of what went wrong at Twickenham, but Neil Francis is writing about it. Peter O'Reilly here. Francis definitely says new blood needed. Peter O'Reilly says Andy Farrell took his players and coaching staff for pints in his local last Wednesday night. So they went to Mulligan's in Sandymount. This play date was in the schedule anyway, we're told, but in the wake of Twickenham, it seemed well timed. There must have been an element of forced jollity for Farrell, however. Talks about how the postponement of this game against Italy is really not good for Ireland if they have to go to Paris. That's TBC tomorrow. Like he says, Italy would have been the ideal opportunity to start a fresh 8 and 9 in Doris and Cooney. Farrell simply can't leave this pair on the bench again. Their performance at Twickenham demands promotion. Apply the same logic to Jacob Stockdale. He can't stay in the team. But he does make the point, it is that bit trickier and the risk is that bit more if you're doing that in Paris as opposed to at home to Italy. World Rugby meet tomorrow.
Yeah.
So this thing may be postponed, full stop.
Yeah, we don't know. That could be, you know, the last game of the spring, and it's hard to see why it wouldn't be, because France has banned, I think, any gatherings over 5,000
in a confined space.
Confined space.
Was
You'd
the
have to
stadium,
imagine a stadium
is it?
confined. Well, you
Much
don't
more
normally have
confined
5,000
can you get, I
people
suppose, yeah.
in a block of seats.
Ligue 1 and Top 14 went ahead this weekend.
Yeah,
maybe it was too late to cancel them. But maybe that's coming into
I don't know.
effect
Italy
now.
cancelled stuff very short notice as well. But
Yeah.
It's Cheltenham I'm very worried about.
What's
now
the word in
because-
Cheltenham, Johnny?
Well,
What
it's like over €1 million has been matched on Betfair on the market. Yes or no, will it go ahead? And the market has been consistently saying it probably will go ahead, but probably not overwhelmingly likely.
Could you do Cheltenham behind closed doors with no crowd?
I mean, I wouldn't have thought so, because there's just so much money involved for racing over there that I wouldn't have thought so.
but the money would just go elsewhere, wouldn't it?
What about all
apart
the
from accommodation, but the money's mostly
70,000-80,000
gambling.
people at the track over 4 days, and all the hospitality? It'd be a colossal loss of money for Cheltenham.
But if the alternative was it doesn't go ahead full stop.
Yeah, like for everybody watching on TV.
Well, I'm thinking of as well
Betting
of the trainers, the owners who have tried to peak for Cheltenham.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I can't see that happening. And part of Cheltenham is part of the horse's ability to handle the experience and all that. Playing it in an empty field, I don't know. But
Aren't most horse racing events nearly empty fields?
they are. But
honest,
that's.
I know this is the Olympics
Cheltenham
of
isn't,
horse racing,
but
yeah.
it's not. I can't see how they're going to reschedule it. It either goes ahead in some shape or form now, or it doesn't.
Isn't it?
Yeah.
What happened in 01 with Cheltenham? Was that
Just cancelled,
Just
wasn't it?
cancelled
The whole year.
Never happened again.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just the calendar wouldn't allow it. It's just. But I firmly hope. The latest betting today was, I think, 2-1. It doesn't go ahead. 1-2 it does. So I mean, that's not. It's strong, but it's possible it mightn't.
There's no Italian horses anyway, is there?
No
French,
Italian
though.
horse.
Few
No,
French, maybe.
there are a few French. They actually feature in a couple of pieces. There's one in the Racing Post with the trainer of all the French horses who's trying to dethrone Tiger Road in the cross country. That's a good interview. And this guy, he trains in the by the coastline, and he's just talking about how good the soil is. Manuel Cleu, and he's saying, like, yeah, it's good for the horses and good for the rabbits, but he's all these horses coming over to take on Tiger Roll, and obviously there'll be reference to
French Laytown, is it?
the French Laytown, yeah. But
Before we leave the rugby, and we will actually touch on some Cheltenham stuff, do you, Ciaran, want to sum up in a paragraph the Andy Farrell regime thus far as our rugby expert here?
Sorry, I just want to jump very quickly, because Rory's had a go at whoever the South African lads are. Now, Johnny Gibb, I think that was, everybody knew that. It was horrible. It was just a shocking way to leave a club.
Yeah.
But he says at the bottom, he's talking about his kid supporting, I don't know why his kid supports England as well as Spurs. I mean, that's just enough pain, isn't it? It's just a pity that some people who purport to support the team can't be as accommodating. When Leinster won the Guinness Pro 14 final against Glasgow in Celtic Park last year, I saw some of the boys, that was James Ryan, I think, Rory O'Loughlin, wearing Celtic shirts afterwards. I had no problem with it, but I couldn't help thinking that if Ulster had been playing at Ibrox and I had put on a Rangers shirt, the reaction would have been very different.
he's right there.
Spot on.
It would have.
Absolutely,
It would have. It would have.
I'd have been abusing them on Twitter for starters.
Yeah, it's quite painful at this stage, isn't it?
Yeah, but it is. It's just a funny one. But Andy Farrell, I mean, it's very hard to know, isn't it? God, I mean,
Very hard.
There's a lot of hindsight in a couple of pieces I read today, as in they're admitting with hindsight we could have had a different approach, we could have kicked more, we could have gone, downfield. The maul's not so good, maybe that's why we didn't. Did Mike Catt want to just give up the development he's doing? There's just so much call for an overhaul, because I think it's because Andy Farrell is still there. The defence hasn't shown itself to be getting better. 3 heavy defeats against England, pretty much achieved the same way. I mean, you've had Rog talking to you about this, so I might be sounding very basic on this, but it seems to be very similar development in those 3 games against an English team that has done it with and without Vunipola, with and without Mako.
Yeah.
Different players in the midfield. Like, they've just seemed to be able to get the better of us far too easily with different players. And I think Peter O'Reilly put in a potential team for France with about 5 or 6 changes, and you can't really argue against it.
No.
You need to see Kelleher in there starting in, which is crazy to think we're saying that, after this is really his breakthrough. Caelan, Doris, Stockdale, I mean, God, I never played rugby as a kid, but watching that reminded me, when he didn't catch it, reminded me of Roy Keane having a go at Paul McShane, which was kind of unfair about not letting the ball bounce in Paris. But that one was just so basic, and he was shrugged off so easily. Like there's just a few things need to change. And sorry, there was one other thing. I think Brendan Fanning had a piece, and he mentioned, and I hadn't heard this, that there was a call for a psychologist in the wake of the review for the World Cup. Now I know there's one that has travelled over there, has worked with the team, but what I see constantly in the last year and a half with this team is that if things start to go wrong, they just completely slide down.
They do seem to implode.
There's no great plan B.
Yeah.
There's no bracing themselves. I think this is why Sexton is getting a bit of questioning, because he's one of the ones that goes, and he can't seem to rein everybody else in. I did a piece with Albie Mathewson, the former Kiwi, before the World Cup.
You talked about Sexton's body language.
Yeah, before the World Cup, and he says, looking across the team, if things go wrong, Johnny loses, his body language goes, and it filters out to all the other places because they see that's Johnny, that's their main man. That's continued. So he got that right before the World Cup happened. We saw it against Japan, we saw it against New Zealand, we've seen it in England. And if the players are also calling for more of that, then maybe he hit on something.
Well, it seems Enda McNulty was with the squad up to and including the World Cup. The IRFU review certainly seemed to throw a few people under the bus who would no longer be involved, including Joe Schmidt. Enda doesn't seem to be involved anymore. I haven't heard of a replacement yet, so that's where that is.
Albie Mathewson, he's working with Ulster. He's gone to Ulster now, isn't he?
Is he?
He left Munster and he signed for Ulster, yeah. So
I missed that.
He's staying around.
Just in the last
couple of weeks, I think. Yeah.
Okay, right. Well, that's a good signing.
He loves to travel.
Yeah,
he loves to get around.
He was very good for Munster.
Yeah, great player.
So, a few other things. I will come on to this Tyson Fury thing in a moment, which also ties in with Rory Best and identity, but just some racing and some GAA. Mick Foley on Congress. Mick Foley sat through Congress, frankly, so you don't have to. He says it was a wearying day, an administrative ultra-marathon.
It's a good piece in that it's just good journalism. It reflects how you feel like you were Mick at this boring long Congress, like with CCCCs.
I want to know how many coffees Mick had, how many bars of chocolate, all that stuff.
They're talking about on Friday night with some delegates possibly distracted by the impending presidential election results and a trip to the bar. So, and then at the end, he's like, the going slowed right down after that, and the sleepy effects of combining the motions with a big dinner eventually kicked in. So it's almost like this big kind of mental and physical ordeal. But he speaks about the back pass to the keeper being outlawed, and he just points out that this has kind of gone in almost unnoticed. And
this went through, said, without a single word of debate. Wait for the reaction when that kicks in.
And obviously then goes on to talk about the sin bin in hurling and all that. But it's a very good piece of journalism. And also another proposal remove Dublin Croke Park as a neutral venue when deciding Dublin Super 8s venues, which is...
That has gone through.
Yeah, so that's quite significant.
It has?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that, again, like these things, like Congress is so boring that people probably would turn off from it, but that is significant. And I remember being on here before when this wasn't voted through, and it was kind of on a technicality, but I think that definitely is significant because Dublin are a lot more vulnerable outside of Croke Park, no doubt, as we saw last night.
There are actually better games to watch in a way.
There are.
It seems a no-brainer, doesn't it?
Some other stuff, limits on collective training is they've toughened up the rules, so you could lose home advantage in your next league game with other teams facing expulsion from relevant competition. On the hurling front, you can imagine Mick almost just with his head in his hands here. So basically the sin bin and the black card thing happened. And David Hassan stood up. He's chairman for the GAA Standing Committee on Playing Rules, and he said cynical fouling is a part of the game of hurling. Now, not to be seen to not do something would look contradictory, he says. So he backs it up with facts and figures. He says 20 inter-county games last year, 26 fouls, including 12 cynical fouls. They also had another, on top of that, 29 professional fouls preventing clear goal-scoring opportunities. As Mick writes, the delegates found a way to defy the logic. Somebody stood up, by the way, and said that rule would be as welcome in Antrim, I presume an Antrim delegate, that rule would be as welcome in Antrim as Joe Brolly in the Sunday game, yahoo. Yeah. And everyone, I'm sure, giggled at that.
He also said it's a manly...
Oh, it is manly.
Manly game.
It's for men.
Literally said it's a manly game.
Oh, yeah. The proposal, by the way, 18%. Hurling said, we're not interested, go away.
Hurling's kind of attitude to this, to me, is a little bit baffling and doesn't do it favours in a way, because it is, and as a Galway fan, I watched the Galway-Kilkenny game last year in Nolan Park, where Galway just completely cynically fouled for the last 5 minutes to ensure a 1-point win, first win there and whatever, and I was like, this isn't great, there was an interesting part at the end as well, when I was at a Kiltormer GAA Cheltenham preview last night, and Kiltormer would be a club sort of near Ballinasloe, but as with many clubs, it's experience, rural immigration and so on and so forth. But just the frustration in terms of the amount of training that these guys do for such limited club championship action, where the club championship starts and then basically they just go months without a game because of the inter-county scene. And I think it's a massive failure in that the inter-county scene is great, but it's destroyed the club game in many ways in terms of taking the inter-county players away. And he speaks about this, Michael Foley, where he's like, the result is that our counties combined are spending 10 times as much on preparing teams than the figure which the GAA nationally is able to commit to investing in club pitches and facilities, and too much of this spending is of the keeping up with the Joneses mentality. And there is that, like, what is everyone really benefiting from just throwing money at the inter-county game? I don't think so. And I think the lifeblood of the sport is obviously the club game. The club game is suffering because you can't play games while the championship is on, and it's a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, agreed. Colin O'Rourke, by the way, is just writing about the new president, Larry McCarthy, from New York. Although he says Larry is no Yank, he hails from Cork. He spent a lifetime involved in New York GAA with the Sligo club. It's a signal honour for them as well. Talks about the foreign vote, it amounts to the same as Leinster, so that would have really worked for him. And then being from Cork helped when Jerry O'Sullivan was eliminated, and then being part of the Sligo in New York helped when Mick Rock of Roscommon was eliminated. So that was how he managed to pip Jarlath Burns. And he does say as well, the Connacht vote transferred to McCarthy. It was always likely to, because the New York project for the Connacht Council is a big prize. No president will tamper with it, certainly not McCarthy. It's always good to know which side your bread is buttered on. Each county in Connacht gets this golden goose every 5 years. It can be classified as a special event, football championship match, junket, fundraiser, meeting of families, or all of them rolled into one. So that was his support. And he goes on to say, look, this guy has a big job to do. We wish him well. He says McCarthy has the GPA lined up in his sights. He hasn't been happy with their fundraising in New York. So that'll be interesting. And there's negotiations ongoing at the moment with the GPA and the GAA. So it's an interesting development that McCarthy now throws his hat into the ring, I'm sure. It would be a great opportunity, Colin O'Rourke, no fan of the GPA, it would be a great opportunity for McCarthy to bring the GPA back into the fold as a subcommittee with appropriate funding, as opposed to an independent group as it is now. I'm not so sure about that. I think there is bound to be a healthy tetchiness between the GPA and the GAA if it's working properly. Anyway,
I just on a slight side point, I'd like to see what the GPA made of that game going ahead last night, because I was at Shamrock Rovers and Galway United, and one of the Galway United players claimed afterwards that 7 Galway United players were suffering from hypothermia.
Yeah.
And the Shamrock Rovers medical staff apparently were really helpful towards Galway United. This game was at 3 o'clock yesterday, but immediately after the final whistle,
Shamrock Rovers 2, was it?
Shamrock Rovers second team. The game was on in Tala. To me, it wasn't playable, but so on and so forth. But immediately as the final whistle went, the players didn't look at each other. They literally just ran. But I was also looking at the goalkeeper. I was looking at the linesman. I was looking at the guys who can't even move that much necessarily. But that game in Oma last night, the Dublin management, according to Declan Bogue's report, didn't want it to go ahead. And I spoke to one of the players who said, "I've never played in anything as bad as that." But where is player welfare in this? I mean, where's the welfare of the officials? Should that game really have gone ahead last night? I just think, would it have gone ahead if it hadn't been on TV? I don't think players were looked after. I think it's probably bordering on dangerous to be playing in conditions like that. And were the players really thought of as the highest priority? I've misgivings about it, I have to say.
Air Sports certainly said that Mickey Hart was very keen for the game to go ahead, and he was, I'm not saying applying pressure, but he certainly made that known to the officials, who were bouncing balls on a pitch and the balls were not bouncing back at them.
What's unplayable then? Do you know what I mean?
I know.
And
did you see the Dean Rock point?
Yeah, I mean, basically the game should probably have been called off after that Dean Rock scored. This is not a condition. But
it's dangerous, isn't it?
I really did feel, as much as it's not sub-zero temperatures like what the Galway United and Shamrock Rovers players experienced yesterday. That should not happen, and I'm not blaming. I don't think they really knew the extent, but that game should not have gone ahead in Oma.
Fair enough. Kudos, by the way, to Dermot Crowe, page 2 and 3 of the Sunday Independent. There's this iconic photograph. I mentioned it at the top of the paper review. A British soldier, West Belfast, 1980s, and there's 2 kids with hurls just going about. They're just playing hurling. The soldier is of no consequence to them. So Dermot Crowe saw this photo doing the rounds again in the last couple of weeks, and he managed to track down Ciaran Stewart, the boy in red now in his 40s, who was a fireman in Belfast, and Liam McCann, who also lives in Belfast, spent some time in London, and he reunites them, and you'll see a picture of the two lads there holding a painting of the photo. Frozen in Time is the headline. Really good idea, good read, something a bit different.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
fair play to them for tracking them down. And I suppose with a story like that, then you're really hoping that they have a big story to tell. But they're reunited. There's always that lovely then and now sort of photo, and it's just. Yeah. I remember watching a documentary. I think it was like photographing the Troubles or something like that, and it spoke to all these, photographers and cameramen who were involved in the Troubles, and many of the photos that were iconic were of pretty poor quality, or the videos were of poor quality, but they were all there was, and they were so evocative and iconic, images of the Troubles. And
a lot of them seem to be foreigners as well.
Yeah.
I noticed that for some reason. Maybe they're just so fascinated that this was in Europe.
On a very dangerous beat, but that photo is absolutely perfect on so many levels.
A French photographer who took it, actually.
They
talked to the French photographer. They're back on the same street, by the way. They're now in their 40s. They both look well. They've aged all right. Life's turned out okay.
Which is bizarre.
Yeah, the lad in the red, when I first saw it, is the head of Rory McIlroy as a kid. Just looks incredibly like McIlroy, but they're back on the street. So
it's funny. I don't
First time they'd seen each other since they were 19.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's not like so. One of the Jimmy Quinn, Liam McCann moved away shortly after that photo, so they lost touch.
Many, I suppose, yeah.
Yeah, they lost touch. They loved each other as kids, best mates. Bumped into each other drunk in a nightclub at 19.
Is that yourself?
And haven't seen each other since. So
I'll be honest, when I was looking at the front, I was hoping to open it up inside and find they were two famous hurlers.
Yeah.
Which would have been a bit too Disney.
Liam McCann says he can't remember communicating much with the soldiers at the time. You might shout something at them, but they'd rarely respond. He explains they could have been post boxes.
Yeah.
I don't know what age you are, Joe, but
34.
In about 1994, I was playing GAA for Thomas Davis, and I got onto this Talis selection, and we went up to play Cooley Kickums in County Louth. I think it's where the Carney brothers played. And we stayed in houses for a week, and we stayed like we were in the Gaeltacht or something, but we were just playing football. And we went up one day into Newry on a day trip, and I remember getting a photograph taken looking through a sniper's rifle. This is like 94, 93 maybe, 93 or something like that. And just looking at these things now, I think how close that is, how recent it is. Like
incredible.
Just walking around the town in Newry, all the lads were in their little tracksuits and whatever else.
I'm not sure the helicopter parents of today would allow you to get a photo with a sniper
Yeah, I don't think my mum would have been too happy now, but going to Syria for a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was different times, but it's a great snap and it's a good idea, yeah.
Yeah, really good. So that's GA, there's plenty inside. I want to finish with Tyson Fury, and I want to finish with some Cheltenham stuff. Shane Broderick, Sunday Times is excellent today, I have to say. It's Sunday Times just full of good stuff today. Dennis Walsh with Shane Broderick, who is now a trainer, but he famously had a winner in Cheltenham in the late 90s, Johnny.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, not long afterwards, he had a fall at Fairyhouse and paralysed really from the neck down, just in a terrible consequence of that fall, to say the least. And he's very open here with Dennis on trying to get through the initial few years and then ultimately trying to rebuild his life. It's the picture which grabs you first. So the picture of him in his wheelchair next to his dog. Sum this up for us, Johnny, or what jumped out at you?
Obviously, he rode Doran's Pride, and he had a catastrophic fall at Fairyhouse. He became a trainer, had a bit of success. He hasn't had a runner at the track in 2 years. Sent out a point-to-point winner at Carlow this winter. He's quite open in this interview because he doesn't really sugarcoat it. It's a great photo with the dog as well, and so many training yards, always a dog's going to be around there. It's all about the animals, but he doesn't sugarcoat himself. Basically, he was depressed for a couple of years.
As you would be, I think.
I look at Doddy Weir, and I look at people who've been, either in this instance motor neuron, in the instance of Shane, obviously paralysis, and you've so much admiration. I know they don't really have a choice. I mean, they have to just get on with it, but everything changes. And in fairness to Shane, he's like, he has to get on with it. They speak of when he went on a quad bike, custom made in Sweden, an ingenious piece of machinery, the steering controlled by pressing his tongue against the inside of his helmet. Braking and accelerating are managed by sucking and blowing on a tube. Because the quad bike could function on any surface, he could take off across the fields left to his own devices, unsupported and unsupervised. And this is in the context of the amount of people that have to look after, which is somewhere later on the piece, all the carers he has, and he's just quite upbeat about it. He says, "I'm quite laid back. I don't feel like any stress. There's no need for it. We don't panic or stress around here." Yeah. And he's half his lifetime now has pretty much been post-accident.
It'll be 23 years in March, he says, since the accident. I was 22 when it happened. It's a lifetime ago. I don't like to be in the house, keep myself busy. I had no horses here during the summer last year. I didn't know what to do with myself. Thank God we got a few back again this winter. He has 7 carers. They look after his needs 24 hours a day. It takes him 2 hours in the morning just to get up and get going. So first 3 years very hard, especially second and third year. They were the hardest. After the accident, I was always half looking forward to something, looking forward to coming home. Then I was looking forward to build the house on his parents' land. Then when all that was stopped, it was, oh God, this is it. What happens now? That's when it really set in. I got very depressed for a year or two. I got help. From time to time, I still do have a chat with somebody.
Yeah, I mean, John Thomas McNamara was lost after a similar accident, and I think he survived maybe 2 or 3 years, and it's just the dangers. I mean, David Mullins returned to action last weekend, and he had a catastrophic fall there a few months ago that really could have ended up in paralysis, and the dangers that these guys, obviously it's part of the thrill, but the dangers that they have to face day in, day out, it's quite remarkable. It's hard not to read that piece, and you should, at the very least, should be very thankful for what you have. You have to just even reflect for a minute and kind of put the little worries that you have about making the bus or, you know, having so much money in your bank account, just put it to one side, because things aren't too bad. It's tough. It's very, very tough.
Yeah, if you're anyway healthy, you're doing pretty well. So that's on page 10 of the Sunday Times. I did want to mention, by the way, Katie Liston has written a very worthwhile piece to read in the Sunday Independent. She was at an event recently, which, you know, it's the kind of event that doesn't happen often enough, I'm sure. It was on Friday, the Sidelines, Tramlines and Hemlines Women in Irish Sport in County Louth Museum. And it was just going back through the annals of time to newly discovered past, she says. So, like, the Irish woman Mary Welch, who fought in the Bear Garden Amphitheatre in London in the 1700s, and other female sports people down the years. And she just outlines how, she says, women's sport and physicality has always been bound up with changing patterns of honour and shame, and talks about the shame that different female athletes have had to deal with. Maeve Kyle, I've never heard of Maeve Kyle, left her husband and young daughter to pursue her Olympic dream in 56. Things like that. Even Katie Taylor, to an extent, she references a story where someone asked Katie Taylor what she was doing boxing, and talks about the 2020s as being a really important touchstone for women's sport, the 50-year histories of soccer and ladies Gaelic football north and south. So it's a very good piece. Dr. Katie Liston is a senior lecturer in the School of Sport at Ulster University, former elite sports person as well. She's been on the show, a Kerry footballer from memory, Irish international. I hope I haven't got that wrong, but it's well worth reading. It's a dense piece.
Katie played for Kerry.
Yes, from memory.
I'm wondering, is she related to the bomber? Yeah. That was the first thing that came into my head. Liston isn't a name that you
hear that often.
Yeah.
I'm sure I know that, but don't want to confirm or nay on the radio. But that's on page.
Let's stick to talking about
women's sport. Is going to be women's sport is going to be the biggest growth area, I think, of the lot.
Correct.
If e-gaming isn't going to come into that, but yeah, I definitely think so.
Women play esports as well, John.
They do, yeah. We had this debate recently about esports and all that, but I think women's sports, that's going to be the big.
Listen, I have an 8-year-old son, 9, a couple of weeks ago, and I've brought him to the RDS, to Aviva, to Tallaght Stadium, where he saw Battery Borisov beaten 3-0, and he wouldn't leave his Nintendo Switch alone to go out to any of them again. No interest.
Really?
He sat in press conferences with Jack Conan and Tyke Furlong, and
just boring.
Couldn't give it flying. Yeah.
That's.
He's actually taken to trolling me recently. So Celtic played Rangers before Christmas, and he's cheering on Rangers. So that's the kids of the future.
That I admire, not so much the e-gaming part.
Yeah.
No, but there's a World Cup for Fortnite, there's a World Cup for esports, and there's millions in it. Like that's going to grow exponentially. It's already on its way.
51 minutes, I was about to say page, 51 minutes. Aston Villa hanging in there, 2-1. Man City leading 2-1. We're going to take a very short break and then we'll finish up the papers. There's, it's probably provocative, to be honest, and a sensitive enough subject, but we'll discuss it anyway. Both Eamon Sweeney and Mark Gallagher in the Mail, Sweeney in the Sunday Independent, to varying extents, but they're looking at Tyson Fury and they're saying this guy is pretty much as close to an Irish heavyweight world champion as we've ever had, really, certainly in a long, long time. And they're wondering if it's his travelling background as to be the reason that we haven't claimed Fury more and got more excited about Fury. We'll talk about that in just 1 second as we finish off the paper review.
Off the Ball on News Talk.
Jim from Navan writes, "You were everything I desired. Perfection. I only had eyes for you. But before I really knew it, you were gone, leaving just an empty box behind. I just want you back. Your 2 juicy patties, crisp lettuce, gherkins, onions, cheese, and my favourite, Big Mac sauce."
Good news, Jim. You can now spend even longer with the taste you love with the Grand Big Mac. But only until the 24th of March, because nothing lasts forever.
This is Finny Alon. She's got the right kind of energy for business.
I run Millish Bakery here in Bundoran. It's been hard work, but I wouldn't change it for anything.
Finn knows what it takes to make her business a success.
We're baking great food for brilliant people in a sustainable way.
And she has a vision for the future.
Our cakes are baked using 100% green electricity from SSE Electricity, which makes them taste all the sweeter.
Switch to the right kind of energy for business today at sseelectricity.com. SSE Electricity. This is Generation Green.
What about my green blouse?
Maybe my mint jumper?
With your awful olive chinos?
Would they go?
Yeah, it's Go Green for Concern. Anything green goes.
On Friday 13th of March, wear a green jumper. Pull out a green wig.
Or dust off those emerald shoes.
No matter how green you go, you'll be supporting vulnerable communities affected by climate change.
To join the fun, search Go Green for Concern today.
Isn't it time to go exploring? To break away and feel something new? To witness the epic Slieve League sea cliffs at the edge of the world? To lose all track of time amidst the hidden histories of Birr Castle? To escape the ordinary on a cruise down the Shannon and make a memory to share forever? Because this country of ours is filled with wonders. Keep discovering at discoverireland.ie.
When it comes to truly awesome entertainment, we're not playing around. Now, when you switch to Virgin Media, you can pick up superfast broadband and TV with Virgin Media Sport, all for just €55 a month for an incredible 12 months and €89 a month after that. The sale that leaves nothing behind, now extended to March 4th. See virginmedia.ie.
T's and C's apply. See virginmedia.ie. New customers only. 12-month contract. Offer ends March 4th, 2020.
Off the Ball. This is News Talk.
Welcome back. So it's Aston Villa 1, Manchester City 2, 55 minutes on the clock. Ciaran, Raghallaigh, Johnny Ward finishing up reviewing the papers. We just spent the ad break bemoaning the ills of Twitter addiction. That's what was going on there. Nobody is free of it. To get back into some good old-fashioned newspaper, a provocative kind of subject. So obviously we'll try and be as sensitive as possible. But Eamon Sweeney and Mark Gallagher in the Mail on Sunday. Eamon Sweeney, picture Tyson Fury. This one's different because he's ours. So his country should be proud of him, writes Sweeney. But which country? Because the somewhat muted Irish response to Fury's victory is the sporting dog that didn't bark in the night. This is, after all, a country unrivaled in its eagerness to claim a share of all kinds of success based on ancestry. And he does there talk about like the Pogues, Oasis, the Smiths, Boy George, Kate Bush, Steve Coogan. I disagree with it to a point. I don't think we're as bad at that maybe as others. But anyway, the point I still take the point. But he asks, where is the love for Tyson Fury with a father from Tuam and a mother from Belfast? I didn't know that, first of all, actually, which is interesting. Yeah. His Irishness is massively important to him, and he details various quotes from Fury, going back to 2011. If you've got any kind of Irish in you, I don't care where you're from, you're brought up as a little child and your father says, this is what you are, this is where you come from, forget everything else. 2013, all my people are from Ireland. I was born in Manchester, but I am Irish. 2015, I'm going to be the first heavyweight champion that's come from Ireland in over 100 years. And even though I speak with a British voice, and I've been born and raised in Manchester, that's the way I see it. I must say, those quotes have passed me by. That is full-on Irishness.
Yeah.
So his Irishness is massively important, right, Simon Sweeney? You can't object to that. He says, but for a lot of people in this country, Fury's traveller ancestry makes him the wrong kind of Irish. Why deny it? This is a land where a man could finish second in a presidential election almost solely because of complaints he made about a particular ethnic group. Don't deny that either. Talks about Peter Casey. Later on, he addresses, I must say, what jumped to my mind. He says, there are those who insist that homophobic and sexist comments from several years back must be forever held against Fury. My own feeling is that these comments had more to do with the fighter's occasional weakness for foolish blather than any real hatred in his heart. So it's a lengthy enough piece. That's kind of a basic summation of the argument. And Mark Gallagher,
yeah, it's
similar.
It's quite different. I mean,
sorry, apologies.
No. It's the same question.
Okay.
Ultimately, but Eamon kind of almost instantly jumps to that as the explanation. So Mark does a bit more history in terms of telling us about, John L. Sullivan, Gene Tunney, James Braddock, the famous great Irish/Irish American heavyweights.
Yeah.
And then talks about how we maybe didn't really realise, and I don't think any of us did, even though we're in this game and we know Tyson Fury for years. I didn't know the family stuff. You're from Tuam, or you're from near Tuam, and you worked there.
I worked in a pub that served travellers. Yeah. In Tuam. I honestly didn't, but I'm not big into boxing. I did not know this.
Yeah, I'd be into enough now, but I would have thought I would have known that clearer. I know that he's related to Andy Lee.
Yeah.
He's called the Gypsy King, and, he's spoken about Ireland a lot. But the difference with Mark, sorry, just to keep back on it, is he goes through the history a lot more. So, it's not all focused on that one topic.
Shouldn't have happened.
There's Tyson giving us a buzz. And, he goes back and talks about, he adds a bit more, and it's funny because Balls.ie did a piece on this very topic on Friday.
Oh, did they?
Which is a curious coincidence that everybody's talking about the same thing. But they had a bit of footage of him fighting on an undercard for Bernard Dunn in 2009.
RTE tweeted that out.
Yeah.
Marty Morrissey interviewed him.
Marty Morrissey's interviewing him.
Are we agreed, by the way, that it has been muted?
Oh, yeah. I think there's been very little appeal.
It has been.
Yeah.
Andy Lee's been interviewed at length. The fight's been reviewed.
But Andy Lee has.
Yeah, fair enough. You're not going to get Tyson Fury on the phone, I would think.
Why wouldn't you? I mean, if he was such a big Irish name and it was so Irish, you would if you tried, maybe. I don't know. I haven't tried to. I find him kind of an unsettling character, to be honest. I've never warmed to him.
Okay.
Again, that's easy to say through the distance of TV and whatever else, but I don't like his press conferences. Not a fan of a lot of what he said. I think his attitude and his way of going about and dealing with people has been troubled. Andy Lee speaks about redemption. Yes, of course, that's a thing. He was in a dark time. Eamon jumps on that quite quickly. I think there might be some sort of truth. I mean,
Eamon's point
telling us we have to believe this, by the way.
That's Ciaran. That's exactly the point. I think that my issue here is. But for a lot of people in this country, Fury's traveller ancestry makes him the wrong kind of Irish. Why deny it? That's an opinion. I mean, I'm not sure what he's.
Well, Joe just said
he's possibly right.
What about Andy Lee?
Andy Lee is, and also like the young kid that Andy Lee has now from the traveller background, Donovan is it? Yeah. So travelling and boxing.
Francie Barrett is mentioned
is very, very obviously intertwined in ways. But I think it's more to do with maybe having a harsh Northern England accent that it's hard for us to consider him Irish more so than his traveller background, which I honestly wasn't even aware of.
I knew of his background, but to conflate the two as a hard and fast black and white idea to explain it was just beyond me. I mean, it was the motor racing champion, the 500 brake horsepower bikes. Jonathan Ray, is that his name?
Not too sure.
He's a global superstar. He's from Belfast.
Yeah.
We don't talk about him. We never talk about him. There's a load of people and again, we're talking on slightly different identity questions here. But unless you are, and again, Mark's piece is interesting because it does bring us back to that time when he was in Dublin and he gave up his Commonwealth and British titles. Again, there's something that if we hear somebody is a Commonwealth and British champion, we're probably not going to jump on it. When it's international sport and it's about the country, it's fairly simple in a way. If they're wearing the green and they're representing the green, we'll get behind them a lot easier.
I would say in the build-up to the fight, and I could absolutely be proven wrong in this, but that's actually not the point, because the point is I didn't feel in the fight he was billing himself as Irish.
He doesn't. No.
Now, he may have said these quotes at various times.
Exactly.
And in the interview with Martin Morrissey, he was at pains to say how much he loved fighting in Dublin and his Irish roots. But I wouldn't say ahead of the Wilder fight, I was thinking, this guy is saying Ireland is here to take over. This is Ireland's champion. It might be there for him, but I don't think it's to the forefront of how he presents himself.
The article, like Mark's piece there, he says boxing has done so much to make the travelling community feel accepted in Ireland, and I think that should really be something that we look at, because the travelling community has massive obstacles to overcome in terms of trying to get work, trying to get 10 times the national suicide rate, feeling acceptance, prejudice, discrimination, and boxing has become something for some young travellers to aspire towards, and I think that's fantastic. I think that's something that maybe we haven't focused on enough, because we're so negative towards that whole issue. And a lot of what Eamon says, I think, is right. The anti-traveller prejudice.
Oh yeah,
completely right. I've had this argument, and I will admit to this. Like, I will have this argument in a pub, and 9 times out of 10, the person will disagree with me when I say how bigoted we are towards travellers. And I will always make the point: you cannot stop somebody going into a bar because he's a traveller. And settled people will say to me, "You absolutely can." And I'm like, well, how is that any different to a black person in 1940s America? And they're like, no, because if you were there and this story, blah, blah. I was like, well, grand. I'm blue in the face telling people this. As settled people in Ireland, our attitude towards travellers is very questionable. I'm just not sure that's what the Fury issue is.
Okay. Well, I think a lot of people would be ignorant to the story. I think he could come over and change that very quickly, but the British media have taken him as their own.
Yes.
Normally we'd have a problem if that was happening and we were ticked off with it, but nobody has really.
His battles with mental health are obviously very inspiring, that he's overcome them and all that.
He's a complicated figure for sure.
Yes.
Like Andy Lee talking about redemption is absolutely right, and yet the comments do linger in the memory. But even and some of the stuff he said in recent weeks, you would think.
Well, just a couple of weeks ago, yeah.
Oof, really?
Has to be from the West. Very, very kind of fundamental religious kind of streak there as well. If you were to go deeper into what Eamon Sweeney is saying there and try to be cold, and this is a problem. We don't have a capacity these days to look at these tough questions about flaws within certain communities and acknowledge them. If there are certain flaws within the travelling community, and I'm not talking about just causing trouble or going to bars, if there are certain moral issues, we don't feel comfortable to discuss them without getting caught up in moral relativism and being shot down for it. There are some fundamental cultural things within that group that the rest of us mightn't accept. And I think people aren't able to say that, and then I think he kind of sometimes represents those obliquely, and maybe sometimes very clearly, like when he speaks about homosexuality, about having a wife at home, these kind of things that we find are outdated. Maybe some people find those of whom know him as an Irish person in the way he says it, as being of an old Irish that we're not really comfortable accepting. Again, that's just a hypothesis. I'm not going to say I can't deny that. You have to agree with that. But Dave Hannigan did a piece in the Times earlier in the week saying that Trump would love. This is Trump's kind of fighter, the stuff he said. So there's a lot more going on than just that one little thing.
Yes.
We can admit that there is that problem, but not convince ourselves that it's the only thing that is stopping us from doing that.
Nuanced way of finishing up on. Fellas, we're out of time. Thanks so much for doing that. Lots of good stuff in the papers today. Johnny Ward, thanks Johnny, and Ciaran Raghallaigh, much appreciated.
Hopefully Cheltenham goes ahead now.
Well, indeed, yeah. What are we, 9 days out?
9 days, yeah.
Yeah, and the bigger picture, hopefully everything calms down a touch. We'll take a short break. Manchester City 2-1 up against Aston Villa, 65 minutes on the clock. That's the paper review for this week.
News Talk Breakfast.
You mentioned